Sometimes couples split and most of the breakups come from rage, jealousy, or betrayal. They just feel like there's nothing to be saved. And even after years of living together, they may even realize all that love and passion are gone. Whenever we hear about people breaking up, we cannot stop thinking about the story we heard a few years ago. It was a woman that learned her husband was cheating on her and he wanted a divorce. She didn't get mad, but she had a few requests. What she did brought us to tears, and we must all agree that she was pretty smart. Hello, wonderful people. I'm Jamie Buck from WonderBot, and here is Husband wanted to separate, then learns a valuable lesson from his wife. Before we begin, make sure you smash the like button, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell for more amazing videos. This story will break a lot of hearts, but will also teach us what real love means and that there can still be a little spark of love out there, even though you think it has completely disappeared. It's always important to hope and know that true love will prevail, no matter what. Here's how the story begins. When I got home that night, as my wife served dinner, I held her hand and said, "I've got something to tell you." The wife sat down and said nothing, eating the food on her plate. Suddenly, I didn't know how to open my mouth, but I had to let her know what I was thinking. I want a divorce. She was hurt but didn't say anything. I raised the topic calmly. She didn't seem to be annoyed at my words. Instead, she asked me softly, "Why?" The husband had no intention of answering the question. Avoiding the question, the wife got angry and shouted at him, "You are not a man," as she threw away her fork. The rest of the night was dead silent. She was weeping. I knew she wanted to find out what had happened to our marriage, he thought to himself, but he didn't want to tell her about the woman he fell in love with, Jane. With a deep sense of guilt, I drafted a divorce agreement, which stated that she could own our house, our car, and 30% stake of my company, he said. But when she looked at it, she just tore the whole agreement into pieces. The woman who had spent 10 years of her life with me had become a stranger. He thought, feeling sorry for her, that she wasted time by his side. But he had his mind set on getting the divorce. I could not take back what I had said, for I loved Jane so dearly. Finally, she cried loudly in front of me, which is what I had expected to see, he said. But his obsession with the divorce was making him relentless. The next day, I came back home very late and found her writing something at the table. He went to sleep, and when he woke up, his wife was still writing on that paper. Waking up in the morning, he received the divorce conditions from her. On the papers, she wrote she didn't want anything, except for a few things, including a month's notice before the divorce. In that 1 month, he had to try to live as a family since their son was getting ready for exams. She didn't want to bother him with the divorce. But as he agreed with it, she told him one thing that made him question her sanity. She asked me to recall how I had carried her out of the bridal room on our wedding day. She requested that every day for the month's duration, I carry her out of our bedroom to the front door every morning. At first, the husband was confused. Did she lose her mind? It was an odd request, but he accepted, and then, when he met Jane, she laughed, thinking it was an absurd request. My wife and I hadn't had any body contact since my divorce intention was explicitly expressed. When he had to carry her out of the room the first day, they both felt strange. Their son was pleasantly surprised his dad was holding his mom in his arms. That realization pained the husband, and she saw it, whispering to him, "Don't tell him about the divorce." After the first day, each went to their own workplace. The second day was different. She leaned on his chest and she could smell her perfume. I realized that I hadn't looked at this woman carefully for a long time. I realized she was not young anymore, he noted, as he took into account the graying hair and the fine wrinkles on her face. Our marriage had taken its toll on her. For a minute, I wondered what I had done to her. Was he regretting his decision and his disloyalty? On the fourth day, when I lifted her up, I felt a sense of intimacy returning. This was the woman who had given 10 years of her life to me, he realized. Then, the next 2 mornings were even stranger. On the 5th and 6th day, I realized that our sense of intimacy was growing again. I didn't tell Jane about this. He was afraid he may influence the way he felt about his wife again. It became easier to carry her as the months slipped by. Perhaps the everyday workout made him stronger, he thought. But it wasn't him getting stronger, it was his wife getting slimmer. She was choosing what to wear one morning. She tried on quite a few dresses and could not find a suitable one. Then she sighed. All my dresses have grown bigger. She was getting thinner and thinner. I suddenly realized that she had grown so thin that was the reason why I could carry her more easily. Suddenly it hit me. She had buried so much pain and bitterness in her heart, he thought to himself. He didn't know things were not exactly how he saw them. As he reached out to touch her hand, their son came and asked when he would carry his mother out. To him, seeing his father carrying his mother out had become an essential part of his life, he realized. My wife gestured to our son to come closer and hugged him tightly. I turned my face away because I was afraid I might change my mind at this last minute, recalls the husband. Will he change his mind though? As her hand surrounded his neck, he thought of their wedding day. On the last day, when I held her in my arms, I could hardly move a step, he said. That wasn't because he didn't have enough strength. I held her tightly and said I hadn't noticed that our life lacked intimacy. That's when he decided to do the right thing. I drove to the office, jumped out of my car swiftly without locking the door. I was afraid any delay would make me change my mind. I walked upstairs. There was Jane waiting for him. She didn't expect him to say, "Sorry, Jane, I do not want the divorce anymore." She couldn't believe that he was backing out now. He realized how much he actually loved his wife and told her this. He explained to Jane that his marriage life was probably boring because she and I didn't value the details of our lives, not because we didn't love each other anymore. Now I realize that since I carried her into my home, on our wedding day, I was supposed to hold her until death do us part, he said. Although his words were sincere, Jane wouldn't have it. She slapped him and ran away crying. He ran from the office and headed to buy flowers. He was now going back to his wife with the flowers and a card saying, "I'll carry you out every morning until death do us part." But as he arrived home that day, with flowers in his hands and again hopeful and filled with love, he ran upstairs and found his wife in the bed. His wife was no longer alive. To his dismay, the husband learned that while he was too busy with Jane, his wife had been fighting cancer without telling him. She knew that she would die soon, and she wanted to keep the negativity away from our son, in case we pushed through the divorce, realized the husband. A relationship is always based on love and understanding. It's always the small details that make our relationship stronger. This husband learned that happiness is when you do little things for the one you love and keep the intimacy alive. That's a real happy marriage. We know the ending is not happy, but for those listening, it's never too late to show more affection to the one you love. Try to be understanding and never let the flame disappear. Remember why and how you fell in love with each other and carry one another until the final goodbyes.